I am sitting on the second-floor balcony of the Westbridge Museum of History and Art, with my back pressed against a plaster column that used to be decorative and harmless. Right now, it is cover. Below me, the main floor is a wide, bright open space that still looks clean in places, even after the last 2 days of people running and falling and knocking things over. The open sightlines are the problem. If anything down there looks up, it has a clean view of me unless I stay low and stay behind the exhibits I dragged into a crude wall. I can see the front doors from here. I can see the gift shop. I can see the cafe seating. I can also see the broken glass scattered across the tile. And every time I shift my weight, I stop and listen for the tiny crunch that would carry. I keep my hands on the chain looped around the balcony access doors, checking the slack, checking the padlock, checking the knot where I tied the spare length off with a strip of banner cloth so the metal does not clink. It is exhibit chain, thick and heavy, meant to keep curious visitors from touching expensive things. It was not meant to keep a full-grown man out, but it will slow him down. The bigger barricade is not the chain anyway. It is the row of display cases I shoved across the top of the staircase. The cases are heavy, with glass sides and metal frames. I shoved them with a furniture dolly I found in an education closet, and I hated every second of it. Glass talks, wheels squeal. Every sound turns into a signal. I had no choice. I needed something that would not move fast if someone hit it from below. My name is Aaron. I used to do facilities work here. Not full-time. Contract work, patching drywall, changing filters, fixing toilets, hauling broken signage, basic stuff. I know which doors stick. I know where the building hums. I also know the museum has blind spots, places where a person can move without being seen from the atrium. And I know the security system is half alive. That is the part that keeps trying to ruin me. A motion sensor does not care if the world ends. It sees movement, it reacts. If power comes back on for 5 minutes, it might decide to scream. The first alarm went off yesterday morning when I tried to cross the hall of local industry to reach the staff offices. I did it carefully, slow steps, keeping my shoes off the scattered screws and bits of glass. I still tripped something, a chirp, then a louder tone. Then the strobe by a side exit started flashing red and white. Not the full siren, not the building-wide panic. Just enough noise to make the things downstairs turn their heads in a synchronized way that made my skin crawl without me needing to name it. I froze behind a mural wall and watched 2 of them shuffle toward the flashing light. Their clothes were dirty from the street. One had a museum wristband still stuck to his wrist. He bumped into a display pedestal, and the pedestal slid a few inches with a scrape that echoed straight up. I waited for the alarm to time out. It did. The strobe kept blinking another minute, then stopped. That taught me 2 things. 1, the system is on some kind of backup, not fully dead. 2, it is inconsistent. Inconsistent is worse than dead. If it was dead, I could move with one less fear. If it was fully alive, at least I could predict what sets it off. This is the middle ground where a door contact works, but the camera does not. Where an alarm panel lights up and then goes dark again. Where a keypad beeps because the building still believes it is normal. Right now, the museum is quiet, in the way an empty school is quiet at night. It is not peaceful. It is waiting. I keep my head low and I watch the main floor through the narrow gap between 2 cases. There are 3 infected in view. I refuse to count more than that because counting becomes a habit, and habits get you sloppy. One is near the cafe tables, bumping a chair with his hip over and over with no purpose. Another is by the gift shop, staring at a rack of postcards with the blank patience of something that does not know it is dead. The third is near the entrance, turned toward the glass doors. Outside, I cannot see much. The front steps are shaded by the awning, and the street beyond is blocked by a bus that sits crooked across the lane. I shift my attention to my barricade. The display cases are stacked too deep where the stair meets the balcony. I turn some sideways so the glass faces into the stairwell, hoping anyone climbing will hesitate before smashing it. I hate relying on hesitation, but humans still have it. Infected do not, but infected still react to sound and debris. The cases are not perfect. I can see gaps. I stuffed gaps with rolled-up exhibit banners and foam from a packing crate. It looks absurd. Museum marketing slogans turned into insulation. It works. The chain across the double doors is the second layer. Those doors lead to the balcony corridor that wraps around the atrium. I sealed the other end of that corridor too, using another chain and a heavy stone bench from a sculpture exhibit. I moved it inch by inch with a hand truck. My shoulders still ache, but I do not talk about that in my head. I talk about the bench being in place. My room is not a room. It is a section of balcony near the natural history exhibit, where the railing is taller and the sightline from below is blocked by a suspended model of a whale that hangs over the atrium. It is a big object that happens to block view. I did not hang it. Someone did that years ago. I am grateful without being sentimental. Under the whale model, there is a recessed area with 2 benches and a wall display about coastal ecosystems. I pulled a rolling archive cart into that recess and tipped it on its side to make a crude shield. Then, I stacked flattened cardboard boxes behind it. It is not bulletproof, it is not magic. It is just something between me and the open air. I keep my gear packed, even when I am not moving. That is a rule now. If I set things down and scatter them, I will waste time gathering when the building turns on me. My backpack has 2 water bottles, half a bag of trail mix from the cafe pantry, a small first aid pouch, a flashlight with tape around the body so it does not reflect light, a multi-tool, a roll of duct tape, and a radio that only sometimes receives anything. The radio is cheap and plastic, and it feels insulting to call it hope, so I do not. It is just a tool. It sits wrapped in a towel so it does not rattle. I did not choose the museum because I thought it would be safe. I chose it because I got trapped near it when the streets went wrong, and because I had a key card that might still work on some doors. On the first day, the outbreak did not look like the movies. It looked like a medical emergency that kept spreading and nobody could agree on what was happening. People ran in weird directions. Some people screamed. Most people just moved faster, heads down, eyes wide, phones up, trying to call someone who was not answering. When the first guy fell outside the museum entrance, I thought he fainted. A security guard went down to help him, and the guard came back up the steps with blood on his sleeve and a look that meant the world had changed, and he could not explain it fast enough. By the time I slipped inside, the museum was already closing. The front desk staff was gone. The volunteer docent in the lobby had left. The lights were on in some galleries and off in others because the system had switched to an after-hours mode without anyone controlling it. I heard banging from outside, and then glass shattering, not from the museum but from a storefront down the block. The sound carried into the atrium and bounced around the high ceiling. I ran through the lobby and used my key card on the staff door near the coat check. The door clicked, and I went into the back corridor that smells faintly of old paint and cleaning supplies. That smell is one of the few things that still feels familiar. I could have kept running and tried to get out the loading dock. That thought came later. In the moment, I went deeper because the street noise was getting worse. I passed the security office and the monitors were on. That surprised me. The cameras showed the front steps, the lobby, the gift shop, and a few hallways. I saw people running outside. I saw one person slam against the museum doors, not trying to get in, just colliding, then sliding down. I saw a man in the street grab another man and pull him down. It did not look like a fight. It looked like feeding. The cameras were grainy and the angle was bad, but the body language was clear. I turned away from the screens because I could not afford to stare. I grabbed the keys hanging by the monitor rack because I recognized the tag for maintenance. Then I moved. I went to the facilities closet first. It is a cramped room with spare bulbs, filters, extension cords, a mop bucket, and a small toolbox that never has everything, but always has something. I took the pry bar and the flashlight and a box cutter. I took work gloves. I shoved all of it into my backpack until it stopped closing. Then I forced it shut and zipped it anyway. I stood there with the closet door almost closed, listening. There was a muffled thump from the lobby, then another. Someone hitting the glass doors again. I went up the employee staircase, not the public stairs. The employee stairs are narrow and painted institutional gray. They do not echo the same way. They have rubber treads. Whoever designed them did not care about visitors feeling grand. The stairs were built for people who carry boxes. I climbed to the second floor and pushed through a fire door into the balcony corridor. The corridor overlooks the atrium through a railing and big open gaps between columns. I could see down. I could see the front doors. I could see the first infected stumble inside after the glass gave way. The infected did not come in with purpose. He wandered, knocked into a brochure stand, then turned toward the noise outside again. More followed. That is when I started barricading. Not later, not after a plan, right then. The public staircase is at the corner of the atrium, a wide set of steps with decorative metal rails. It is designed to guide visitors up to the balcony exhibits. It is also a funnel straight to me. I went into the nearest gallery, the one with early settlement artifacts, and I grabbed the first heavy thing with a flat base that I could move. A glass case. I pushed until it rolled, slow and loud, and I wanted to stop a dozen times. I kept going anyway. I shoved it across the top of the stairs, turned it, shoved again, and wedged it against the rail. Then I went back for another. I did it over and over until the stair opening was filled with a wall of museum furniture. I was not careful enough. On the third case, one wheel hit a ridge in the floor and the case jolted. Inside, the artifacts rattled, small pottery fragments and display mounts. The sound was a tiny disaster. The infected below stopped moving for a second. One of them turned toward the stairs. He shuffled closer. Another followed. I stopped pushing and crouched behind a column, holding my breath without making it a dramatic thing. I just held still because movement is a loud choice in a quiet building. They wandered to the bottom of the stairs, looked up, then wandered away again. That was the moment I understood the building was not a fortress. It was just a box full of angles and sounds. When the immediate panic faded, the practical problems moved in. Water was the first. I found the staff restroom on the second floor, filled 2 bottles from the sink, and turned the tap on slow to see if pressure held. It did. I filled a third container, a plastic pitcher from the staff kitchenette. I did not trust it. I did it anyway. Food was next. The cafe had supplies. The pantry had snack boxes, granola, crackers, and small jars of peanut butter meant for school group lunches. I took what I could carry without making the packaging crinkle too loud. I learned fast to open wrappers with a box cutter instead of tearing them. Tearing is sharp and sudden. Then there was light. The balcony has skylights and large windows. In daytime, it is bright. Bright is dangerous when someone outside looks in. At night, bright is dangerous when someone inside looks up. I went into the exhibits and pulled down fabric banners. The museum uses banners for temporary shows. Thick vinyl with printed text. I used duct tape to hang them inside the balcony openings, turning my section into a darker pocket. I left small viewing slits so I could watch the atrium. I taped the edges so wind from the ventilation would not flap them. Flapping sounds harmless until it repeats every 3 seconds and drives a person insane. The first night, I did not sleep. I sat with my back against a rolled carpet from an exhibit storage area, and I watched the main floor through the slits. Every time an infected bumped a chair or a brochure stand, I tensed and then forced myself to relax without lying to myself. I listened for footsteps that sounded purposeful. Purposeful footsteps mean living people. Living people are not automatically better. I watched the front doors, and I watched the gift shop, and I watched the shadows shift when clouds moved over the streetlights outside. My phone died around midnight. I did not waste battery earlier calling anyone because the networks were already failing. I turned it off and kept it off. At dawn, the museum's automatic system did something. The lights in the atrium turned on in stages. First, emergency strips near exits, then overhead fixtures. A soft hum rose in the building, air handlers starting somewhere. The sound woke up the infected. The 3 I could see started wandering more actively, drawn by the new noise. Then a speaker in the ceiling clicked, and a recorded voice started playing a scheduled museum announcement about opening hours. It echoed through the empty space and sounded wrong in a way that made me want to throw something at the speaker. I rushed along the balcony corridor to the audio control closet and found a small panel. I yanked the power cord out. The announcement died mid-sentence. The silence after felt heavy. I had to deal with the security system before it dealt with me. The security office was on the ground floor. Going down there meant passing sightlines, crossing open space, and risking the stairs. I did it anyway, because I could not live with random alarms. I chose a moment when the infected were clustered near the front doors, drawn by something outside. I slid along the balcony, kept behind columns, and used the employee stairwell. The employee stairwell exits into a hallway behind the gift shop. That hallway has a door with a small window. I peered through and saw no movement. I opened it slowly and eased into the hall, keeping one hand on the door so it would not swing shut and click. The security office door was unlocked. That surprised me until I remembered the guard had probably left in a hurry. I slipped inside and closed the door without letting it latch fully. The monitors were still on, but the image flickered. Some cameras were dead. Some showed static. The alarm panel on the wall had lights on it and a low beeping that went off every 30 seconds. The beeping was the worst. It was a quiet, steady, predictable sound that still carried. I found the panel's manual in a drawer. I flipped pages with my thumb, reading in quick bursts. I found a button labeled Silence Trouble. I pressed it. The beeping stopped. I almost smiled. I did not. I kept working. I shut down what I could. I turned off interior motion detection in zones that mattered, especially the galleries I needed to cross. The panel asked for a code. I tried the default code printed on a sticker inside the manual. It worked. That felt both lucky and insulting. The museum spent money on alarms and never changed the default code. I disabled the door chime for the staff hallway. I left the exterior alarms on. If someone forced the front doors, I wanted noise down there, not up with me. I also turned off the lobby announcement system at the main audio rack in the security office, a separate switch. On my way back up, I almost ruined everything. I opened the staff hallway door and saw a man standing in the corridor, facing me. He was alive. I saw it in his eyes. He had a backpack and a kitchen knife held low. He did not rush me. He froze. I froze. No heroic speeches, no drama. Just two strangers deciding whether this is the moment to die. I raised my empty left hand to show I was not holding a weapon. My right hand kept the pry bar behind my leg. I did not lift it. I did not put it down. He whispered, "Help me," and his voice cracked on the last word. He kept glancing over his shoulder, toward the gift shop area. I did not answer fast because fast answers turn into loud ones. I nodded once and pointed up, then pointed to my own mouth and made a slow, quiet gesture. He understood. He stepped toward me and I backed up into the stairwell, letting him enter. I closed the stairwell door behind him. In that narrow gray space, he looked worse. He had scratches on his forearms. Not deep. Still, I noticed them. He noticed me noticing. He pulled his sleeve down. We went up the stairs in single file. I kept him in front so I could see his hands. That is not noble. It is survival. On the second floor landing, he stopped and listened. I did too. The building was quiet except for the distant shuffle of infected downstairs and the low hum of ventilation. He whispered his name was Mark. He said he had been hiding in a bank lobby across the street until the glass shattered. He said he saw people get pulled down. He kept repeating the same detail, that the bite did not look like a bite at first. It looked like an animal tearing. I cut him off with a hand gesture because the details were making him louder. I brought Mark to the balcony, to the darker pocket under the whale model. He saw my barricade and his face did something complicated. Relief and worry at the same time. He asked how long I planned to stay. I told him I did not know. I told him the museum has water for now and some food. I did not tell him how much. I did not tell him where it was stored. That sounds cold. It is. I did not meet Mark in a normal world. I met him after the world snapped. Trust is expensive now. Mark tried to talk more. He wanted to understand what was happening outside. He wanted to talk about his girlfriend, his apartment, whether he should try to get home. I let him speak for 1 minute. Then I stopped him gently, because long conversations are noise and noise is danger. I told him the rules. No loud movement, no dropping objects, no going near the balcony rail unless necessary, no opening packaging with a tear. If he had to cough, he should put his mouth into cloth and do it low. He looked offended for half a second. Then he nodded again, and his shoulders sagged. He understood the logic even if he hated it. Having another person changed the math. 2 people need more water. 2 people make more noise. 2 people also have more hands. I put Mark to work. We raided the staff kitchenette through the back corridor, moving slow, stopping often, watching corners. We carried bottled water and boxed snacks up in a canvas tote bag from the gift shop storage. We did not use plastic bags, plastic crinkles. We found a small camping stove in the education supply cabinet, used for a backyard archaeology program. It had 2 fuel canisters. I told Mark we would not use it unless we could vent smoke without being seen. He asked how. I showed him the bathroom exhaust vent above the staff restroom ceiling tiles. I had serviced it once. It vents to the roof. It might work. Might is still better than no. Later that afternoon, the security system tried to betray me again. A gallery door somewhere downstairs opened on its own, probably from air pressure shifts when the ventilation kicked on. The door contact beeped once, then the panel in the security office chirped in the distance. I had silenced the panel's trouble tones, but it still logged events, and sometimes it still pushed a notification tone through the speakers near exits. A short burst. 3 notes. That sound pulled one infected away from the front doors and toward the employee hallway. I watched from the balcony slit as he wandered, then bumped into a brochure stand and knocked it over. The stand hit the tile with a slap that made Mark flinch. Mark started to rise, as if he could do something. I grabbed his sleeve and pushed him back down. Action is not always useful. By day 3, the museum felt smaller. Not because it shrank, but because I mapped it in my head and the safe routes were limited. The balcony corridor is my main road. The employee stairwell is my elevator. The staff hallway behind the gift shop is my bridge to the lower floor when I must go there. The galleries themselves are minefields. Glass cases, loose displays, hanging fixtures, motion sensors I might have missed, and the constant chance of running into an infected in a blind corner. I started using a museum floor plan from the docent stand, folding it into a small square I kept in my pocket. I marked safe doors in pencil. I marked doors that squeal. I marked where I saw infected linger. Mark became a problem in a quiet way. He was not violent. He was not loud on purpose. He was scared, and he tried to make it better by talking. He also kept pacing, short laps in our little pocket under the whale model. Pacing scuffs shoes. Scuffs make noise. I corrected him. He corrected himself for an hour, then forgot. I caught him peering through the balcony slits too long, watching the atrium, staring down at the infected with a kind of disbelief that made him lean forward. Leaning forward risks being seen. I pulled him back again. He whispered, "I just need to know this is real." I whispered back, "It is real. You do not need proof." That was the closest thing to comfort I had in me. That night, Mark tried to leave. I woke to a faint scrape, the sound of fabric against metal. I opened my eyes and saw his silhouette near the corridor, moving toward the barricaded doors. He had his backpack on. He had the kitchen knife. He moved with the careful intent of someone who thinks he is being smart. I did not shout. I crawled toward him and caught his ankle gently, not to pull him down hard, just to stop him. He jolted, nearly knocked a stack of flattened cardboard. He froze, eyes wide, mouth open, then closed his mouth again when he remembered noise matters. He whispered he could not stay trapped. He said he wanted to reach his apartment, that he had food there, that he could not die here. I told him he could die outside faster. I told him the streets were full of infected and people with no rules. I told him leaving at night is a terrible idea because he cannot see broken glass. He cannot see bodies. He cannot see what is waiting in doorways. He argued in a whisper that still carried. I listened. Then I made it simple. I told him I would not stop him physically. I told him I would not open my barricades for him either. If he wanted out, he had to move the cases himself, and moving them would make noise that would bring infected to the stairs. His face did something angry and helpless. He sat down hard on the floor. He did not leave. The next morning, Mark apologized without saying sorry. He offered to fetch water. I let him, but I watched. He went down the employee stairwell with me behind him, careful steps, hands free. At the staff restroom, he filled bottles without overfilling and spilling. I saw him pause and stare at his reflection in the mirror for half a second. Then he turned the mirror toward the wall. That was practical. Mirrors reflect movement. A reflected flicker can draw attention from below through sightlines. I nodded once. He nodded back. That was our version of bonding. On day 4, we found the body of a museum guard in the staff hallway. I had avoided the hallway as much as possible, but I needed more batteries for my flashlight, and the gift shop stockroom had them. We moved down the employee stairs and opened the hallway door, slow and silent. The guard lay near the coat check door, face turned away, one arm bent under his chest. I did not touch him. Mark started to move toward him, and I held Mark back. I watched for movement. None. The guard's radio sat near his hand. I wanted it. I also did not want to kneel beside a dead man in a building full of infected. I used my pry bar to hook the radio strap and drag it toward me, inch by inch. The strap scraped the tile. I stopped, waited, listened. No response. I dragged it again until I could pick it up. The radio was dead, battery removed. Smart decision by someone who wanted to conserve. Too late for him. We reached the gift shop stockroom and found a box of AA batteries, a few packets of gum, and stacks of museum tote bags. I took the batteries and left the gum. Gum is not food. I grabbed 2 tote bags anyway, because cloth bags are useful. Mark grabbed a souvenir sweatshirt and started pulling it on. I grabbed his elbow and shook my head. New clothing sheds lint. Lint clings, lint itches. Lint makes a person fidget. Fidgeting makes noise. He looked at me with annoyance, and then slowly took it off. He rolled it into his bag instead. That compromise was fine. By day 6, the museum started to smell worse. Not in one dramatic wave, but in layers. Stale food from the cafe, sweaty fabric from 2 men sleeping in a cramped pocket, the sweet chemical smell of cleaning supplies from the closet, a faint sour smell from downstairs where bodies lay out of sight. I set up a sanitation system because ignoring it would end badly. I found a 5-gallon bucket in the janitor closet and a box of heavy trash bags. I lined the bucket and made a lid from a piece of foam board and duct tape. I told Mark bluntly that this is the toilet now. He grimaced, but he used it. We tied off bags tight, then stored them in a sealed exhibit crate in the far corner of the balcony corridor, away from our sleeping spot. If we stayed longer, that would become a bigger problem. I did not pretend otherwise. We tried cooking once, only once. On day 7, I decided we needed warm food and we needed to use the freezer supplies before they spoiled completely. The cafe freezer was still coldish, but without stable power, it was losing the fight. We carried a small pan up from the education kitchenette and set the camping stove under the staff restroom exhaust vent. I taped a sheet of cardboard around the stove to block any stray light. I cracked the bathroom door and stuffed fabric in the gap so it would not click. I lit the stove with a long lighter from the cafe. The flame was small. The smell of heating food rose fast. Mark heated a can of soup and tried to stir it quietly. The spoon tapped metal once. That small tap echoed more than it should have. I saw Mark's eyes snap toward the door. I turned off the stove immediately. We ate the soup lukewarm and did not cook again. The museum punished us for that mistake within an hour. A slow, dragging sound came from downstairs. An infected had wandered into the staff hallway, drawn by whatever drifted through vents. He bumped the staff hallway door, the one that leads to the employee stairwell. The door rattled in its frame. Mark stared toward the stairwell door as if he could see through it. I moved to the top of the employee stairs and listened. The infected bumped the door again. The hinges squealed faintly. That squeal was a signal. Another infected answered with a low noise from the atrium. Then another. It was not a coordinated pack. It was stimulus and response. That is enough. I backed away and held my pry bar tighter without raising it, just anchoring myself in readiness. The door held. Eventually, the infected wandered away again. We both sat in silence afterward, not because silence is dramatic, because silence is safe. On day 9, human danger found us. Not a full gang, not a movie scene. Just 2 men who came into the museum through a broken side window near the cafe. I saw them first on the security monitor I had carried up from the office. I had unplugged it and relocated a smaller spare monitor from the education lab that can run on a little portable battery pack I found in a drawer. It is not meant for that, but it works for short bursts. The camera feed was intermittent, but I saw enough. 2 men, both alive. One with a backpack and a metal pipe, one with a handgun held low. I did not stare at the gun. I just noted it. They moved with intent. They were not looking at art. They were looking for supplies. Mark whispered that we should call out, that we should ask for help, maybe trade. I shut that down fast. I told him the museum is a good place to loot. Anyone who enters assumes someone might be hiding. If we announce ourselves, we turn ourselves into a problem for them to solve. Solving problems in this world means eliminating them. Mark looked angry, then scared, then quiet. I watched the men on the flickering feed as they moved through the cafe area, opening cabinets, tossing chairs aside. They made noise. That noise pulled infected toward them. I saw one infected shamble from the lobby toward the cafe. The man with the pipe swung hard and fast. He hit the infected in the head. The infected dropped. No gore, no drama, just impact and collapse. The man stepped over it and kept moving. That told me the man had done this before. The looters moved toward the public staircase. That was the moment I was waiting for and dreading. The man with the pipe started up the stairs. 1 step, 2 steps. Then he stopped when he saw the cases jammed across the top. He looked up at the balcony rail, scanning for movement. I stayed low behind my banners. I kept my face back, no silhouette. He shouted something, not a question, more of a warning. I could not make out the words. The sound bounced off the ceiling and made infected stir. The man with the handgun stayed below, scanning. He pointed the gun upward once, then lowered it. They both started pushing the cases from below. The cases shifted a fraction and squealed against tile. That squeal was a beacon. Infected started converging. One from the lobby, one from the gift shop area, another from the hall near the restrooms. The looters tried to keep working anyway. The man with the pipe swung at an infected that reached the bottom stair. The man with the gun fired once. The shot was deafening. It turned the museum into an echo chamber of chaos. The infected reacted. More movement from outside. I heard banging at the front doors again. Not from a person trying to get in, from infected drawn by the sound. The looters cursed and backed away from the stairs, suddenly realizing the museum was not empty. I stayed still and let the situation do what it does. The looters retreated toward the cafe and out the way they came. They left fast, not because they were kind, because the building turned hostile the second they used a gun. Infected drifted toward the sound path, cluttering the floor near the staircase, then wandering toward the cafe. For hours afterward, the atrium stayed more active, more restless. Mark kept looking at me with a new expression, not gratitude, more of a disturbed respect. He had wanted to speak. If we spoke, those men might have tried to pull us down from the balcony. Or worse, they might have set the building on fire to flush us out. People do that. I saw it happen in the street 2 days ago when someone threw something flaming into a convenience store and locked the door. I did not see the end. I did not need to. After the looters, Mark stopped arguing about leaving. He also stopped pacing. Fear changed shape for him. It became quieter. That helped. We spent day 10 reinforcing the barricade. I found more cases in the modern art gallery and rolled them into place, adding depth. I also wrapped the case frames in strips of cloth, so if someone shoved from below, the frame would not ring metal on metal. I wedged rubber doorstops under the case bases to stop sliding. I found a bag of sand in the exhibit prep area, used for weights on temporary walls. I poured sand into small fabric bags and used them as dead weight against the case corners. It is simple. It is heavy. It works. On day 12, the museum's power failed fully. The hum stopped. The overhead lights died. The building became dim even in daytime, relying on the gray daylight coming through skylights and windows. At night, it became black in the interior corridors. My flashlight became life. I rationed it. I used it pointed at the floor with my hand over the lens to narrow the beam. I taught Mark to do the same. We moved by feel in places, hands brushing walls, counting steps between landmarks. The half-working security system became less of a threat because it had less power to do anything. The downside was colder air and less ventilation. The smell thickened. We opened a rooftop access hatch once, just a crack, to let air drift, then closed it again because opening anything is an invitation. Day 14 brought rain, and rain brought leaks. The museum has a flat roof with drains that clog. I knew that from work orders. I also knew the drains were on the far side near the administrative offices. Not easy for me to reach without crossing galleries. I heard the leak first, as a tapping in the ceiling tiles above the balcony corridor. Then a soft drip. Then a steady trickle that ran down a wall and threatened to puddle on the tile where I needed quiet footing. Water is loud if it splashes. Water also makes surfaces slick. I grabbed every trash can and bucket I could find and placed them under the leak. I tore a strip of tarp from an exhibit storage bin and made a crude channel taped to the ceiling so the water ran into a container instead of down the wall. It looked ugly. It worked. We started collecting that rainwater too. I did not trust roof runoff, but I trusted it more than an empty bottle. We used it for washing hands and wiping surfaces. For drinking, we still used tap water when pressure existed. The taps weakened around day 15. The flow became a slow stream, then a trickle, then nothing in some sinks. The toilets stopped refilling. That was expected. City systems fail fast when nobody maintains pumps. I filled every container we had the moment the pressure started dropping. I used museum beverage pitchers, cleaned and rinsed. I used plastic storage bins from the education closet. I labeled them with a marker so Mark would not accidentally use the toilet bucket water for drinking. Mistakes happen under stress. I reduced the chance. Day 17 was the worst day in the museum so far, and it had nothing to do with infected. It had to do with Mark's scratches. I watched his forearms when he thought I was not looking. The scratches looked darker, not infected looking in some dramatic movie way, just irritated. He started sweating more, not in a way I described with body cliches, but in the way his shirt stuck to him, and he kept wiping his face with the same sleeve, smearing grime. He started stumbling over words. He said he felt fine. People say that when they do not feel fine. I told him bluntly I needed to see the scratches in full light. He hesitated. I insisted. He rolled his sleeve up. The scratches had red streaks. Infection, regular infection, or something worse. I did not know. I made him sit in the staff restroom while I cleaned the scratches with antiseptic wipes from the first aid kit. He flinched and tried to pull away. I held his wrist firmly, but not violently. I told him he needed to let me finish, or he would lose his arm even in a world without zombies. He tried to laugh once, and the laugh turned into a cough he fought to keep quiet. When I finished, I wrapped his arm in gauze. I told him to drink water and rest. He said he could not rest, that resting meant dying. I told him pacing meant dying too. He did not argue. He lay on the tile because he could not bring himself to lie on our shared sleeping spot. That small choice was considerate. It did not fix the fear gnawing at me. That night, I slept in 10-minute fragments. Each time I woke, I checked Mark. I checked the barricade. I checked the atrium through the slit. I listened for the subtle sounds of someone moving with intent. I did not hear that. I did hear Mark whispering to himself once, not coherent words. I did not ask what he was saying. Questions create answers, and answers in this situation can force decisions I might not be ready to make. That might sound cowardly. It is also practical. I waited for daylight because daylight makes decisions clearer. On day 18, Mark worsened. He woke confused, staring at the wall banners as if he could not place them. He asked where he was. I told him. He asked again. That scared me more than any infected downstairs. He tried to stand and nearly fell. I caught him under the arm and guided him back to the floor. He became irritated, then angry, then suddenly quiet in a way that felt wrong. He stared toward the balcony edge, toward the open atrium. I watched his hands carefully. I watched his jaw. I watched his eyes. I told him to stay seated. He nodded without looking at me. That was not normal compliance. That was empty agreement. I moved my supplies. Quietly. I did not let Mark see. I shifted my backpack closer to my sleeping spot. I moved the pry bar to my side. I positioned the toilet bucket lid within reach because a lid can be a shield and a distraction. I did not want to hurt Mark. I also did not want to die because I pretended things were fine. This is where a lot of people get it wrong. They cling to an old version of morality that assumes the world will reward kindness. Kindness still matters, but it cannot replace safety. I stayed near Mark for hours, monitoring him, offering water, offering a cracker. He ate the cracker slowly, mechanically. That was a good sign. He drank water, another good sign. By late afternoon, Mark became more himself again. He spoke in a low voice and apologized this time with actual words. He said he got dizzy. He said he had not eaten enough. He said he was not bitten. I did not ask about bites. If he was bitten, he would lie. If he was not bitten, he might still lie because he is scared. I just watched his behavior. I told him we needed to keep moving as a team, that if one person collapses, the other person must be able to respond. He nodded. He looked ashamed. Shame is dangerous too because it can trigger rash decisions. I kept him busy with tasks, small ones, sorting supplies, folding banners tighter, checking the sandbag weights. Busy hands stay quieter than panicked hands. Day 20 brought smoke from outside. Not a wildfire, not some dramatic apocalypse sky, just a building fire somewhere in the neighborhood. The smell drifted into the museum through ventilation gaps and broken windows downstairs. Smoke made the air harsh. It also made the infected more restless. bumping into things more often as if irritation translates into movement. Mark started coughing again, muffled into cloth, but it still worried me. I went into the conservation lab on the second floor. I know where it is because I once fixed a sink there. The lab had masks, not perfect respirators, basic dust masks and a few sealed cartridges for a paint booth. I took what I could carry. We wore masks when the smoke thickened. It helped. It also made our breathing sound louder to our own ears, which can mess with your focus. I forced myself to ignore it. Day 21 was the day I stopped believing we could stay long-term. The museum is not built for living. It is built for displaying. No kitchen, no reliable water, no safe waste disposal. Too many ways for sound to betray you. Too many windows, too many entrances. Also, people know museums have supplies. Looters will return. Maybe not tomorrow, eventually. The longer we stay, the more likely we meet someone who is patient and armed. I started planning an exit route in my head. Not a heroic run, not a sprint through chaos. A slow move through back corridors to the loading dock, then out to the alley, then to the employee parking lot where staff used to park. I knew there was a museum van. White, logo on the side. Keys might be in the security office key rack. If the van still has fuel, it could get us out of the immediate area. On day 22, we heard a voice downstairs. A woman's voice. Not screaming, not running. Speaking in a controlled way that sounded forced, the way a person sounds when she is trying not to panic. The voice came from the loading dock area. That is behind the exhibits, behind the admin offices, far from the atrium. Mark and I looked at each other. The old world reflex kicked in for Mark. Help someone. The new world reflex kicked in for me. Is it a trap? Is she alone? Is she injured? Is she loud enough to bring infected to her? I waited. The woman spoke again, calling out, "Is anyone in here, please?" I did not answer. I moved. I grabbed my backpack and my flashlight. I signaled Mark to follow. Then I led him through the balcony corridor into the back hall that leads toward admin. We moved slow, hugging walls, stepping over debris carefully. The museum was darker now, lit by thin daylight through high windows. We passed the exhibit prep room, and I paused to listen. The woman's voice came again, closer now. She sounded exhausted. She also sounded alone. No second voice, no commands. That does not mean safe, but it is information. I crept to the end of the hall and peered down the staircase that leads to the loading dock corridor. The corridor was shadowed. I saw a woman sitting on the floor near the dock door, back against the wall, knees drawn up. She wore a paramedic jacket. She had a small backpack. Her hands were empty. I stayed hidden and watched for a full minute. She did not jump up. She did not scan with a weapon. She rubbed her forehead and looked down at her hands. She looked worn out. Real. She said again, softer, "Help me out. I am stuck in here." I moved a step forward and spoke in a low voice, not loud enough to echo. "Stay still," I said. She snapped her head toward me. Her eyes widened. Then she nodded quickly. I kept my pry bar down, but visible. I asked if she was alone. She said yes. I asked if she was injured. She said her ankle was twisted, not broken. I asked if she was bitten. She said no. I did not trust the answer fully, but I noted she answered fast. Too fast can be a sign of lying or a sign of rehearsed fear. I kept watching her hands. Her name was Lena. She said she got separated from her crew when the ambulance was blocked. She said she ran into the museum thinking it would be empty. She said she heard infected in the atrium and backed into the dock corridor. Then a door swung shut behind her, and locked. That part made sense. The museum has magnetic locks on some doors that fail weirdly when power flickers. She said she sat there for a day, listening, rationing water, trying not to move. That also made sense. She asked if we had water. I told her yes. I slid a bottle toward her across the tile, slow. She grabbed it and drank with careful sips, trying not to choke. That restraint also told me something. People who can still control themselves are safer. Safer, not safe. Getting Lena up to the balcony was not quick. Her ankle slowed her, and I refused to carry her in the open. Mark wanted to help, to put her arm over his shoulder and move fast. Fast is loud. Loud is death here. I found a rolling office chair in an admin office and brought it to her, wheels squeaking until I wrapped the wheel axles with cloth to dampen the sound. I sat Lena in the chair and Mark pushed while I walked ahead with the flashlight pointed down. We took the employee stairwell that leads toward the second-floor admin corridor, not the atrium stairs. We moved one slow wheel turn at a time. Every 10 feet, I stopped to listen. Lena kept her mouth shut. That earned trust points without me needing to say it. Back on the balcony, I set Lena up in a corner behind banners. I gave her a towel to use as a pillow. I gave her a few crackers. I did not give her a full inventory. Mark tried to ask her questions right away. Lena shut him down with a blunt, exhausted tone. She said she did not have a big story. She said people got sick and then violent. She said hospitals filled. She said the city tried to lock down. She said it did not work. She said she saw police shoot an infected, and the infected stood back up after a few minutes and kept moving. Mark looked like he wanted to argue with reality. He did not. He just stared at the floor. I listened, not because I needed confirmation, because hearing it from someone who worked emergency response made it harder to deny. That night, the museum tried another trick. The emergency lighting on the balcony corridor flickered on suddenly, a pale green strip light near an exit sign. It buzzed. Buzzing is not loud, but it is persistent. It also creates a glow that can silhouette a person behind banners if the angles are wrong. I crawled to the fixture and saw a small battery pack behind it, the kind used for emergency exit lighting. The pack was dying and surging. I could not remove it cleanly without tools and time. I did the next best thing. I wrapped the fixture in a thick exhibit cloth and taped it, reducing the glow. It still buzzed, but less. I also shifted the banner slits so the light would not leak outward. This is the kind of work that defines survival now. Not fighting, managing a building that was never meant to be lived in. By day 24, Lena could walk better, still limping. She offered to scout with me. I refused. Not yet. I tested her first. I asked her to help Mark sort supplies to keep him calm and quiet. She did it without complaint. She spoke to him in short sentences. She did not try to comfort him with false hope. She told him to eat slowly and drink water and stop staring at the atrium. Mark responded to her more than he responded to me, probably because she sounded competent and familiar. The tone of someone who used to give instructions in a normal world. That helped us. I let her stay because she improved our odds. I am not proud of thinking in odds, but I do it anyway. We plan to leave on day 26. I chose the morning because daylight helps visibility and because infected are more dispersed then, less clustered around noise that tends to happen at night. We needed the museum van. That meant getting the keys. I still had the key ring from the security office, but I did not have the vehicle key. Museums keep vehicle keys in a lockbox or in a drawer, and I had not searched deeply because I did not want to spend time in the security office. Now I had to. I went alone. I did not let Mark come. I did not let Lena come. I needed fewer feet, fewer breath sounds, fewer chances of a mistake. I moved down the employee stairs into the staff hallway, slow. The guard's body was still there. I kept my eyes forward. I did not step near him. The hallway smelled worse. I slipped into the security office and closed the door softly. The monitors were dead now. The panel lights were dim. I opened drawers, one at a time, careful not to let metal handles clink. I found a lockbox under the desk. It required a key. I tried keys from the ring until one fit. Inside were 2 vehicle keys and a small gas card. I pocketed the keys. I did not bother with the card. The pumps will not care about a card in this world. I also grabbed a paper map from the desk, city street map that security used to mark events. I left everything else. Leaving the security office, I heard movement in the hallway. Soft footsteps, too, even to be infected. I froze with my hand on the door. I listened again. Footsteps, then a pause. A man's voice, low, not echoing, close enough to be dangerous. "I know someone is in here," he said. Not shouted. Calm. That is worse than shouting. Calm means control. I backed away from the door and moved to the corner of the office behind the desk, keeping the pry bar ready but not raised high. My brain ran through options. The office has a second exit into a small storage alcove that connects to the admin corridor. That door is usually locked. I checked it. Locked. No time. I waited, silent. The office door handle jiggled once, then again. The man outside did not slam it. He tested it. Then he stepped away. I heard him move down the hall. Another set of footsteps joined him. 2 people. Maybe the looters from before, maybe new. I stayed still until the sound faded. Then I waited longer. Patience keeps you alive more than bravery does. When I finally cracked the office door, I saw the staff hallway was empty. The 2 people had moved toward the cafe end, probably searching again. Their choice was perfect for me because it drew infected toward them, away from the employee lot side. I used that. I moved fast but controlled, back up the employee stairs, back to the balcony. I told Mark and Lena we leave now, not later. I did not explain about the men in the hallway in detail. I just said someone entered the building again. Lena's face tightened. Mark started to talk, then stopped. We packed. We carried water and food in cloth tote bags. We left the toilet bucket and most of the bulky supplies. A person cannot carry a home. A person carries what keeps him moving. I checked Lena's ankle wrap. I tightened it. I gave her the flashlight because she needed to watch her footing. I kept the pry bar. Mark carried the backpack with most food. I watched Mark closely because stress makes people do foolish things. We did not go through the atrium. We went through back corridors, hugging the admin wing, using doors I knew. The museum has a service corridor that connects to the loading dock and to the employee lot door. That door is a steel exit with a push bar. It used to alarm if opened without disarming. The alarm system was mostly dead now, but I still moved slow and listened for any beep. I pushed the bar gently. The door opened with a soft suction sound, and cold air hit my face. Outside smelled of wet pavement and smoke. The alley was empty. No cars moving, no voices. Just distant bangs somewhere in the city, and a far siren that never stopped completely, stuck in a loop until its battery died. The employee lot was 2 rows of cars behind a chain-link fence. The museum van sat near the far corner, white with the museum logo. I moved to it and checked the doors. Locked. Good. I unlocked it with the key. The door opened, and the interior smelled stale, vinyl, and old coffee. I popped the fuel door and unscrewed the cap, mostly out of habit. I climbed in and turned the key. The engine cranked, hesitated, then caught. The sound was loud in the quiet lot. I hated it. I also needed it. I signaled Mark and Lena to get in fast. Mark climbed into the passenger seat. Lena slid into the back because her ankle made the front seat awkward. I backed out slow, avoiding the pothole near the fence that would clunk the suspension. Driving through the city felt unreal, but not in a dreamy way. It felt practical and dangerous. Every intersection was a blind corner. Every parked car could hide a person with a gun. Every stopped bus could hide infected. I drove slow, not to be cautious in some moral sense, because speed makes noise and mistakes. I chose side streets, the ones with fewer storefronts. I avoided the downtown hospital because I knew it would be chaos. Lena gave directions in short bursts, pointing with 2 fingers, not waving. Mark stayed quiet, staring out the windshield. Twice we had to stop because infected wandered into the street. I did not run them over unless I had to. Impact can damage a radiator or puncture a tire. A dead engine means dead people. I waited, hands tight on the wheel, until the infected shuffled past. We reached the outskirts by late morning. The city thinned into low buildings, then into scattered houses and lots with tall grass. We saw smoke columns in the distance. We saw abandoned cars on the shoulder. We saw one group of people walking along the road carrying duffel bags, heads down, not looking at us. I did not stop. Lena did not ask me to stop. Mark did not ask either. That silence was a shared agreement without anyone needing to say it. The museum taught me what open sightlines do. The road taught me the same lesson. People see a working vehicle, and they want it. Want turns into violence fast when there is no law. We drove toward a small industrial park outside town because Lena said her cousin worked security there, and there might be a fenced lot with supplies. It was a thin plan. Thin plans still matter. We approached the park slow. The main gate was open. A guard booth sat empty. The lot beyond had a few trucks and a warehouse. The warehouse door was shut. I parked the van behind a delivery truck to hide it from the road. We got out and moved quiet. Lena tested the warehouse door, locked. She pointed to a side entrance. We approached. I listened. Nothing. I used the pry bar to wedge the door. The metal creaked once, then gave. We slipped inside. The interior smelled of cardboard and motor oil. No movement, no voices, no infected. Just quiet space. Inside, we found water pallets and boxes of packaged food. Not an endless miracle stash. Just normal warehouse inventory that had not been looted yet. We also found a break room with a first aid cabinet, bandages, tape, and a cheap splint kit. Lena took control there. She cleaned her ankle, rewrapped it, and showed Mark how to tape it properly if it worsened. She did it calmly, without making it a medical lecture. Mark listened. I searched the warehouse office and found a clipboard with a list of tenants in the industrial park. One was a small tool supplier. Another was a generator rental place. Those names mattered. Tools mean repairs. Repairs mean survival. I did not celebrate. I wrote the names down on the map. We spent the rest of the day securing the warehouse door from the inside. We used pallets as barricades. We used stretch wrap to bundle stacks so they could not be pulled apart easily. We checked every room, every corner, every restroom. We found a maintenance closet with a mop and a bucket and more trash bags. That solved one problem for now. We found a small radio on a shelf and tested it. It played static and one faint voice far away, not clear enough to understand. That still meant someone was transmitting. Someone alive, somewhere. I did not turn it into hope. I turned it into a fact. That night, sitting on the warehouse office floor with my back against a filing cabinet, I realized I had not been inside the museum for a full day, and my body still expected the echo of the atrium, the fragile danger of glass, the constant threat of a chime or a strobe. The warehouse is different. It has fewer sightlines. It has thicker walls. It has fewer surprises built into it. I watched Mark eat slowly, more stable now. I watched Lena check the door locks twice. Professional habit. I checked the van keys in my pocket and kept my pry bar within reach. The world outside is still ruined. Infected still exist. People still exist. And people are still the harder part. But for tonight, the ceiling is solid, the door is blocked, and the noise stays on the other side. I can live with that.